Okay, so hello everyone. Today's presentation is gonna be on the consulting industry. Your presenters are Doğa. Demirhan is my name. I'm a consultant at the Boston Consulting Group for 4 years, and I graduated in 2016 from Bilkent Economics. And Gül, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please feel
Yeah,
free.
yeah, sure. My name is Gül and I'm a graduate of Bilkent Economics Department. I've been working at the Industrial Development Bank of Turkey Economic Research Department for the 2 years. So I'm excited to be here and also to hear what Doğa is going to say about his profession.
And Gül is also recently moved to the consulting department as well. So
Yeah, exactly. We're also serving
seen
other
both.
consulting advisory services in our bank.
Yeah.
But a bit different from management consulting, though. So management consulting is something that I'm not very familiar. So I'm excited. I have questions in my mind as well about it.
And so before this presentation, we collected some questions from the participants and also from some current students at Bilkent. And I was able to categorize those questions in like 5 buckets. One of them is the preparation related. And the second one is the life in consulting, then career opportunities, way of working, challenges and rewards. So in terms of the preparation, one question was like, I think it was from you, like.
Yes, I was curious about your career adventure. Like, what brought you here, where you are? What was the role model that you had in mind, or what was the aspiration, the goal that you had in mind in your career path?
Okay. So basically, to start with from the beginning, I would like to say that as an economics student, I wanted to go basically in an industry that I was going to be able to use a quantitative skills, conducting a lot of analytics and doing a lot of fact-based analysis, and also a little bit of a social work in a social workplace, like communicating with the people, like being working in teams, or going from one place to another and so on. So the consulting fits very well to those two aspects. It's a quite technical job in terms of like quant use, but it's also quite social when it comes to interacting with the people, even if they're like clients, not of course the like always your friends, but still. So it was my inspiration. So I wanted to really have this kind of job. And like what played the most prominent role in this is that basically I will say advanced planning and some very clear tips and guidance that I got from people who work in the industry. And those people basically play the role model role for me. And based on their tips, I was able to find the right resources to prepare, and I was able to practice enough to get a real consulting job. And afterwards, basically also similar to that, it was also very useful to demonstrate my skills in the job itself after getting recruited.
So how did you meet these people? In the career fairs, or were they like a family friend or a close relative?
Okay,
consultant people?
Good question. So I was a bit lucky that I had basically some family friends actually were doing some consulting job abroad, and like those people were not working in directly the same place that I wanted to, but they were able to give me guidance, provide me very early guidance, and like when I was in the summer of my first year at university. And then there were some other friends at school that not necessarily from my class, but also in my at Bilkent in general, were like in a a little bit older than me, like a senior year students that were preparing for those jobs. So I was able to observe them, to learn from them, both the things to do and also both things not to do. And then I was able to basically address those in the 3 years that I have to prepare.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so another question was what are the capabilities a person has to be, like, has to
What
have
makes a
to
good
be a good,
consultant?
what makes a good consulting? I'll say like the areas that are tested in the interview, as I mentioned before, is like the analytical skills, business judgments, and the good communication skills. I think those three combined makes a good consultant. Of course, the best consultant is expected to have like some other things, like, you know, being a little bit more social or having knowledge in specific industries and so on. But in general, those three are the most important aspects.
These are also the personality traits that the job requires, right?
Yes,
We
yes.
answered two questions at the same time.
Somehow yes. And also on top, actually, of course, personality is a little bit broader. So I'd like to also mention that those three make a good consultant at the beginning. But to keep being a good consultant, of course, you need to have some certain personality traits, like managing stress successfully, like like the managing stress successfully, like delivering negative messages to a senior people or challenging the senior people, adopting like a non-hierarchical environment and switching to a hierarchical environment when it's required, and so on. So it's there
You
are a
have to be
lot of,
flexible, huh?
yeah, you need to be flexible, definitely. And those personality traits are actually, I will say, not specifically for consulting, but also for the business world in general. But like consulting is a, like, I will say, very, very business environment, so very much like heart of the business, I will say. So it's important to have those traits.
So I'm also interested in how the regular life in consulting is. Like, what do you guys do mostly on a regular day? Do
Okay.
you do the same things like every day, or the tasks are always changing? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Okay. So we mostly don't do the same things every day, but the work is like mostly, depending on the phases and of course depending on the project, you have quite a lot of interaction with the other people in the team. So it's definitely a team job, and then you spend a lot of time with the team discussing, planning, and chatting and so on. Team is definitely one part of your day. And then you spend, depending on the case, a lot on the technical analysis, either using like analytical tools, like some like basic tools like Excel, or some like advanced tools like we have Alteryx, or even like Python sometimes. And you spend a lot of time on a day on the preparing presentations. So making slides is a big part of the consulting, which doesn't look like a big part from outside, but it is actually. And it can be like sometimes more than half of your time. And it can be like not about strategy consulting. It can not be necessarily about like business, but it can be just like finding the right visual, making the best slides, putting the charts in place, or putting the text boxes in colors and so on. So as a
You have to
junior
be creative
consultant,
and also artful, right?
yeah,
You
it's
have to
good.
an understanding of art, maybe.
Yes, a very, very basic art, but yes. and uh, And from some projects also, like travel is also a very big part of it. So in my first project, I remember I was going a lot to another city, like every week. I was staying there in the hotel for 3 nights, 2 nights, 3 nights, and then I was coming back to Istanbul. And in my life right now, I actually travel every week to abroad, to another country, like wherever I do the project. And then I come back on the Thursday evening to Istanbul, and I spend the weekend, and I travel again on Monday morning. So daily life depends a lot on the project, but it's quite intense, I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in your career, where did you start early on? What were
Okay, so
you most dealing with?
okay, in another city, as I mentioned. So on the second day that I got in, they sent me to another city, and I been there with the team that I just met, like, and I started to see those guys like from breakfast until the late night after dinner. So and it lasted for like 5 months. And first of all, initially I was asked to do some analysis on Excel to get some insights about the client's sales versus the competitor, and the client's prices versus the competitor, and so on. So I did a lot of Excel analysis. I made a lot of mistakes, and then I got a lot of like feedback from my peers, from my manager, and it was like a middle of the learning, I will say. And then I started working on another module in the same project, which focused more on the organization side. So it was designing the senior level organization of a new company that our client founded in abroad. And after that, I basically started doing a survey for the customer, for the client's organization employees to measure their engagement with the company. So those were the three key things that I mostly deal with in the very early phases, like very early months of my career.
A very big responsibility on a fresh starter, right?
Yes, of course. But also the thing is that the team is made in a way that everyone checks the like
On each other.
on each other's output. So mostly the manager checks yours, associate partners check hers, or and partner checks his, and so on. So it's like a layered, I will say, organization that have very fast interaction, very quick interactions on each step. So it's quite, I will say, an efficient environment. So it's fine to allocate responsibility to juniors. That's how. And another question was that from a student was, how easy is it for a consulting to move to another industry? Can you easily jump to another job, or do you get stuck in the consulting once you start? So basically, this depends a lot how you spend your time in consulting, actually, because um, consulting is a, as I mentioned, like a industry that gives you a lot of ideas, a lot of like things in a very short time about various industries. So you can get diversified a lot, and you can learn a lot of different things, a little bit of a lot of things in different industries. That makes you a great consultant, I would say, because you will have ideas on everything pretty much. But it may not make you a great employee in one of those specific industries, because it means that if you learn like 10 industries with 5 different functions, it means that you learned like a lot about 50 different the areas in like 5 years. So it is not very much per area knowledge, compared to a person who just specialized in one area for like 3 years or 2 years, like even shorter, and spent his or her entire career on that specific area. So once you want to move to another industry, if it's a very specific function that you want to move, let's say you want to move to digital marketing department, digital marketing role in a marketing department of an FMCG company. The question they're gonna ask you probably is that what do you know about digital marketing? What do you know about if it's a packaged goods, like packaged goods, let's say beverages, and so on. And if you tell them that 50, things about 50 different areas, you did automotive, you did telco, you did sales operations, they won't be very much interested in. So they look for the person who is specialized in that area. So if you go very diversified, I will say it's not very easy to jump to another industry. But on the other hand, if you really specialize in something, if you work after testing different areas, if you pick your focus and then you start to deep dive in there, then you can actually qualify quite a lot, because the other people who work in the industry won't see the all layers of that specific function. Like if they work in a digital marketing, they work in the digital marketing for the, let's say, small chain stores, and there they spend like 1 year. But once you work in the digital marketing focus for beverages companies in the consulting, you work in the chain stores, you work in the overall strategy setting, you work on the digital marketing for the online channels, you work for the digital marketing for the different beverages types, different markets, and so on. So you may be quite a qualified candidate for another position in the consumer goods industry if you work in that way. So
So you can
it depends a
utilize
lot.
what you learned in the digital marketing and sales projects. You can utilize them in your future career in marketing or sales, maybe.
Exactly. If it's your focus and if it's where you want to aim for, where you aim for your career, then you can definitely leverage it.
All right.
Correct.
So what is your expertise, or what are the industries that you worked on before?
Okay. So it's a bit of connected to the previous connection questions, and it's following the same path that I recently work in the pricing projects for travel and tourism clients. So, which are the airlines, cruise companies, hotels, railways, and so on. So, I've been actually working in this field for like 2 years now. I never did any other project in the past years, and but before that I was quite diversified. In the first 2 years I was quite in all over the place, working all over the place, and the past 2 years it's more like, as I said, pricing for airlines and
Okay.
cruises.
So at first you started with projects on shorter terms, maybe, and now
uh,
you're
mm,
working with longer ones.
yeah, somehow yes. So I still do some short projects because pricing also have some, like, let's say, strategy phase. There are some projects that we do the strategy phase and then we don't do necessarily the implementation, so it lasts like short, I'll say 8 weeks, 2 months. But most of the time, yes, a big part of the pricing is the implementation. So I mostly do like long projects. My not last one, but the one before that lasted for like 1.5 years. I didn't work for 1.5 years on the same project, but I worked in like 7 months of it. It was quite long.
Okay.
And another question I got was like about regarding the data, which is a very important part of the business. Actually, it's also a very important part of your daily job, as daily work as well. So where you find the data for the analysis is that you have several sources. One of them, the main of them, is the client itself, because you analyze the client data. If it's a client, let's say I give an example from my recent case, is that you do a pricing for the airline company, and then you analyze the prices, the client's prices for the past year, and how much they sold with those prices in past year. So you analyze the client data. But on the other hand, you also want to know the competitors' data. So you want to know if my client set this price, how much it sold and how much its competitor sold. So to check his competitors' prices, you have several sources on the internet. Most of the time, those are like the let's say licensed or like reserved sources that you need to buy, and you purchase those, you subscribe to those data sources, and then you extract the data from them, and then you analyze it, the market data especially. And on the other hand, there are some cases that you cannot really find the data from somewhere. So you need to make some estimations. For instance, you don't know the competitors' futures prices, of course, but you will make some estimations depending on the current data that you have. So you build some models to estimate how much will the clients sell for in the future. So you decide on how much to sell for as the client at the same time. And so those are the three sources of the data that we mostly use, I would say. Another question is that basically a bit related to previous is that how do you do a project in an industry that you don't have much information, like you don't have much data and so on? So basically, if you don't really know about the context, like the what is the industry, what are the dynamics, who are the key players, where do they sell, what are the key customers and so on. So basically, you do some market research. Those market research can be like publications of certain research companies, or it can be some reports from like again specific industry source production producers. Like there are different producers for different industries. Like Euromonitor is a very good one for consumer goods, or like Bloomberg is a very good one for financials and so on. So you can leverage those. You can do some expert interviews, which is a very popular also kind of learning, is that you do an interview, a 1 hour interview with an expert, mostly a former executive in the industry, and or you basically interview with the client to learn from the client about their business without really showing that you don't know much about their business. So that's I
You
would
have to fake
say.
it till you make it.
Yeah, somehow yes. That's unfortunately a part of the business. Yes.
But this is also a teamwork, right? You don't do all this by yourself, so you don't have to know everything by yourself. There are people who had experience before you, who can help you along the way,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, no, absolutely. If it's a project that you don't know anything, you don't have any information, but your peers have, of course, you leverage them to the greatest extent. Or even if you don't have information as the project team, but someone else in in the company done this project before, you basically consult them. You take like you schedule a short call with them, and then let them explain you what they did in the past and so on. So within the company, especially for the big companies like BCG, McKinsey, Bain, those companies have like thousands of consultants. So you can just send an email to a guy in Australia and have a catch up in early morning, like evening for her, and then do basically a short interview and so on. This is a very common way.
So how do you work with your partner? How does
Okay.
the team work with each other?
Okay, so that's a bit tricky. That also from team to team it depends a lot. Like if you remember that the team composition that I described as like from associate, like business analyst, consultants, to partners, everybody engaged in the discussions and everybody produced the final output, contribute to the final output. But the thing is that the partners, of course, even if the consulting firms are not really the most hierarchical firms in the world, there is still an hierarchy. And then as a consultant, your task is doing the the right analysis accurately, and then generating the insights that contributes to the output that shows a direction. And the manager composes those insights and then assign new analysis and then discuss those analysis and results with the team and then prepare basically like a presentation, a draft presentation. And then as a team led by the manager, you present it to the partner and then get their inputs, so the partner's inputs. And then after discussing with the partners, the partner's role is like they are team members in the team, but they also play the role of the client. So they challenge in advance before it goes to the client. So they sometimes play the bad cop and then challenge you a lot to show where you need to fix, where you need to be more accurate, or where you need to deep dive further. And after you basically produce enough to meet the partner's, let's say, requirements, then the last step is to producing a final output and then aligning on the way to present it. And then you deliver the message to the client in the presentation, which we call steering committee meetings most of the time. So partner role is a bit tricky. Like it can be quite friendly when it comes to like team effort to generate insights and so on, but it can be quite like disruptive sometimes, like when it comes to like challenging your outputs.
Mm-hmm. They're putting some pressure on you to maybe produce better results, right?
Quite a lot, yes.
Pushing.
Yes, they cracked that fact that the stress level increases a bit, the final output quality increases a bit. Like they cracked it, but some of them couldn't crack the fact that if you put a lot of pressure, then the quality start to go down. So the ones who are able to distinguish, to find this
Find
differentiation,
balance.
find the right balance,
Balance.
succeed. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. All right,
Okay.
interesting stuff. So, I mean, I see that you enjoy this stuff, right? So you get excited about doing your job. So what are the enjoyable and exciting parts of it?
Yeah, so the stress being put pressure is definitely not a part that I enjoy, but there are some parts that I enjoy quite a lot. So one thing is that so it gives you a chance to travel a lot. That's the part that I like most actually. So you can for me, like I've been to like more than 5 countries in the past 2 years, and did did work for the clients from different nationalities. And meanwhile, I found the chance, like to meet different cultures, like I visited different places, spent the week in the like local culture, restaurants, and so on. This is like a very very enjoyable part of it. And the second part that I like most is that it gives you quite a lot of responsibility. I will say, like, it gives you the chance to, build a model to decide where does the client invest next using almost their entire budget, or like it gives you a chance to show how to collaborate, how to find a new company to the CEOs of the two different big companies. So like those type of like high responsibility things, I think like really quite satisfying, and I really enjoy those parts. And the last part, the third part that I like most is that it's quite a social business. Like you interact with a lot of people, you meet a lot of people, and then you know a lot about like how do people think, how do people interact, and so on. So it's actually like something that I find chance to observe, not in my business life but also in my personal life. So it has effects on that positively.
I assume you don't fly nowadays, though, right?
Yes,
Coronavirus.
due to COVID, yes, I don't fly much. That's why we do this like a webinar, not a seminar. But
Yeah.
yes, so the part that I enjoy most is disappeared now. But I hope to get it back soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
Let's see how soon. Let's see how soon it's gonna be.
All right, next one. What do you dislike the most? This is the top one.
Okay, this is the best question. So what I dislike the most is that, so most of the time, I will say there are a lot of things that I dislike, of course, but what I dislike the most is that if you don't have a clear view on how to crack the problem, how to crack the project, you need to sometimes test a lot of different things. And those areas that you test, if they're not very much consistent and if they don't really make a let's say, homogeneous framework in the end to find a solution, you may get like distracted a lot and you may really get lost in the analysis, and that your result, your output may not really be linked to any solution, and you waste time. So once you realize that you waste time there, you jump to another analysis. And if you don't really get this analysis linked to another, linked to any solution, then you again jump to another one. And in the end, you can find yourself that you worked hours and hours, you boiled the ocean, and then you couldn't find anything really useful. And then in the end, you got stuck in the, let's say, with a lot of data without any solution, with 2 weeks before the steering committee meeting. So, and it puts more pressure and so on. So sometimes, especially when you're not familiar with the industry and the project manager or the partners are not really familiar with the industry or the topic, this problem occur, and this problem occur a lot. Uh, so this is the part that I dislike most, like very inefficient due to lack of capabilities and so on. So this is very, I will say, important thing that the candidates need to consider before start working in the consulting industry.
They have to be comfortable with the uncertainty, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uncertainty, right?
Absolutely.
Because you work so hard and you get nothing in return sometimes.
Yes, a lot of times.
A lot of times.
So you need to really beware of that fact.
All right.
Okay, and this is actually a part that also I was not expecting to face with before I started consulting. And like to answer the next question also, like the biggest challenge, this is one of them, and the biggest challenge linking to them to this part actually is that managing the project manager and the managing the partner. So if you realize that this way that analysis is not useful for the solution, you need to communicate it in a nice way to convince the partner that you're going in the wrong direction, and the way that they showed is not the right way most of the time. So most of the time you need to be like brave enough to show it, but also smart enough to convince them to shift the direction. That's the biggest challenge that I've been facing so far, I will say. Mm-hmm. And the last question is that the biggest reward thing, I will say, I think you don't realize it as you're in the industry, but after some point you gain some like very structural skills, like being more to the point, being more organized, being more let's say structured. Mm-hmm. And those things are the things that you use in any kind of business. Either it's in communicating the message to a business partner, or doing an analysis, or planning a project, and so on. And this is a capability that you can use in any industry in the future in your career. I think it's like the biggest reward. And I still think that I have a lot to gain in there, even if it's the biggest reward. I will say I need to get even more of that.
Hopefully you'll get more rewards.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's see.
Your plan.
But as long as you get more rewards than the challenges, then it's then it's a gain.
The challenges are easier to take, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the reward part.
Exactly, exactly.
All right.
So if you don't have any other questions, that
Well, I don't for the time being, but I'm sure there'll be many more questions from the students
yeah,
or from mentees, mentors, even to you. So thank you for your clarifications. Thank you for your presentation as well. I mean, this has been this has been a like eye-opening and wide with a information session with a wide range. Uh,
mm,
Thank you for that. So, are
no,
there
thank
any
you.
things that you want to add before we close up?
No, thank you very much for like participating, doing preparing the presentation together, and also for the great questions. And so we will be having similar sessions similar to this on the other industries like the finance, the consumer goods, and so on. So um, just like as you said, please feel free to reach out to us, any of us, in either in this industry specific questions or in like career development questions or anything else. Just the more we contribute to the mentorship program, the better for us. So I hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you very much, Gül, again
My pleasure. My
for
pleasure.
present. Thank you.